Hi, and welcome to the first episode of We Like the Idea, a podcast where the ill-conceived notions of four lifelong, perfect friends come together and come alive. For better or for worse, it's for your entertainment. Today we take our first steps into the land of Haeth, a beautiful land full of nice animal folk where nothing ever goes wrong, money isn't real, and capitalism can't hurt you. It's a very new system for us. We're playing Wanderhome, which is designed by J Dragon, which you can get at possumcreekgames.gov or .ru, potentially .ca. It's a game of collective storytelling. There is no DM here. There is no strength stat. No one's going to be rolling for initiative. We're going to be describing pretty places, traveling along pretty roads, and meeting pretty people. I'm sure we'll find a way to make it really sad. Our character backstories kind of already address that a little bit. I think it probably makes a lot of sense to start with going around the table, introducing yourself as you feel comfortable, and briefly describing your character. Who wants to start?
I can go ahead and kick us off.
There's no kicking here.
Also, you have no legs. You're a snake.
Spoilers.
I can slither us off. I'm Nicholas Acosta. I tend to be, so far, it seems that I'm probably going to tend to be the DM of these things, but this will be my first time being a player in quite some time for something, hopefully, long form. But I am going to be playing Brand, a hog-nosed snake the length of an anaconda. And I'm going to be using the playbook, The Veteran. I wield on me, metaphorically, a sword that I can use to instantly kill anyone in front of me. But as soon as I use it, cannot play this character anymore. And I've also taken multiple vows, according to my character, to not use the sword, never unsheath it.
Why don't you, for the audience, Nicholas, give us one of those kind of character dichotomies you have, like 2 things you've forgotten and 1 thing that you remember, or one of those things, because I think those are really interesting things about the playbook in this game.
One of the things that I have to choose for this character is 3 lessons, 2 that I've forgotten, and 1 that I remember. For the ones that I have forgotten, I should read the actual versions of them, because they're very well written in this game, made by J Dragon, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Shout out J Dragon for making one of the most beautiful games I've ever read, by the way.
It is gorgeously beautiful.
Hear, hear.
I'm sure my praise means a lot to you.
One of the lessons I have forgotten is that a sobbing and hurt young child taught me that a single slice kills not only the enemy, but everyone who loved the enemy as well. And this is why I must never unsheath my blade. A second lesson I learned, which we have re-rolled a little bit to be from one of the players, actually. Oh, hold on. Let me do the other one first. The other one I've forgotten, because I'm silly. I saw in the eyes of someone I thought was heroic in this situation, being my father, the fate that awaits everyone who only knows violence. This is why I must never unsheath my blade. And the last lesson, the one that I choose to hold on to, a friendly old innkeep, which in this scenario was not an innkeep, but the child of some innkeepers, taught me that a well-made bed can save more lives than an army of warriors ever could. And this is why I must never unsheath my blade.
And that's sort of the really poetic thing about the Veteran, is that you have this blade that is so powerful, but you must never unsheath it. And if you do, you are completely capable of killing anything that stands in your way, and then your character is retired from the game immediately, which I think is a really kind of poetic way to hint towards a violent past, but not indulge in a violent present, which I think is really kind of the beauty of this game, is that, in the book itself, there's that line that there was a war that recently ended, but there is not war here anymore. This is a land of fundamentally good and just chill folks, and we love that.
Some things that I sometimes am are beautiful and cold, and 2 things that I refuse to ever be is furious and heartless. Character is, like I said, a snake. Not any sort of convenient snake in some cartoon. I am a whole no-limb having snake.
He's Slytherin.
I am Slytherin.
Not the Harry Potter thing. Get out of here.
I am likely a couple 100 feet long. I'm a long...
Sorry, a couple 100 feet long?
What is the length of an anaconda?
I don't think it's a couple 100 feet.
Is it not? I could swear it is.
So.
Hit Google, my guy.
Listen, we're about to Google this because I'm very curious about the length of an anaconda.
While Nicholas Googles the length of an anaconda, who don't want none unless you got buns, hun, let's move on. to one of the other players at the table. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. All right.
First, if you would like to, feel free to introduce yourself, and then you can talk about your character.
Cool. Sounds good. My name is Bree, and I am going to be playing Chamomile, aka Cammy. She is a black cat peddler, and
she is a black cat who peddles, not a peddler of black cats. To be clear.
Yeah, no, I don't.
You don't
peddle
sell
black cats.
you don't sell your own people into slavery.
Oh no, I don't like that.
Not in this world. That's a different
No.
campaign. Just kidding. That's not in any type of campaign that we're interested in running.
She is accompanied by her adopted golden retriever brother. He is younger, so he's my little bro, but he's twice my size. And what I peddle is honey, wool, tea, and books. So items of comfort. Let's see.
What's your brother's name?
Saffron, so we call him Saf.
Very cute.
And let's see.
Hit me with some R's and aren'ts.
Okay, she is extrovert and watchful, and mine was need to be. Okay. And so she needs to be experienced and calculating.
I like that. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we move on?
Let's see. I've got a keepsake from a past with the rebellion. She's got a wilted orchid from her time helping the rebellion deliver secret messages in the books that she would sell. Oh, one thing she lost a long time ago was a map leading to wealth beyond anyone's imagination, given to by an old friend who has now disappeared.
So yeah, one of the things that's left kind of wide open is what exactly the conflict was that has recently kind of wrapped up. And there's a lot of prompts about being tied to a rebellion, which we'll get to a little more when we get to my character, I suppose. But yeah, for now, we haven't really done a lot of deep world building because I feel like leaving blanks is probably the best way to start with this sort of thing, as it often is. But we have very broadly characterized a rebellion in a very classic sense of, the oppressor being defeated by the oppressed. It's a happy ending, basically. The rebellion won. The bad guys are not doing bad guy things no more, and the world is a nice, happy place. So where a normal fantasy series might end is where we're picking up, I think is a nice way to put that. It's very nice.
I'm 32 feet long.
I see now that sounds
sounds
more
right.
manageable.
that sounds a little bit better.
That's more manageable. But yeah, Brand has on him hidden armor, which in this scenario, for me, is just that his scales are significantly harder than people expect them to be. I think he's covered in many scars, though. I think there's a lot of marks. He has a torn standard. He also has a nervous tick, which is when he is nervous, he will kind of grin in a very, imagining a snake grinning isn't pleasant. And his tongue keeps forking out even though he doesn't need it to. On top of that, that's important for Brand. He was part of the oppressors. He was Kingsguard to the oppressors. And somewhere along the lines, he learned that he was on the wrong side.
And somewhere along the way, maybe we'll do a world building episode where we give these oppressors like cool names, and we give us even cooler names, and it's all very poggers.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like the idea that our characters literally tell you, like, Brand, you're forking. And he's just like,
God, that's great. Forking?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't help it. I saw a pretty girl. I saw a pretty snake girl. Moving along then.
Hold on, wait.
Oh, you got more?
Yeah, I want to describe the sword because we spent a lot of work on that, and I think that's cool.
What if we describe that in play?
Okay, that works for me.
That's I want to describe some of the character, but leave some for play because I think
that works
that's
for me.
That's going to be good because we're going to be doing a lot of descriptions. Ash, tell me a little bit about your character.
I am Noodle. I'm a ferret, and I work as a moth tender. Carrier moths travel across the Haeth, bringing news, letters, and tiny boxes. I wandered the land, keeping an eye on those moths and their towers.
So you're a moth postal worker.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm a male ferret.
But what are your pronouns?
Noodle is a he.
Noodle's a he. Oh, that's interesting. One of the things that is kind of refreshing about this game is that it does ask you to state pronouns for your characters. So, Nick, I am
Brand
assuming
Brand
that
is
Brand's a he him.
Brand is a he they.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Dan's
Brand is
a he they. Yeah, my character is a he him for whatever that matters for him.
Cammy's a she.
Cammy's a she. Okay, tell me, give me some of those cool dichotomies about your character. A thing you are and aren't, or a thing you have and lost, and they're different for each playbook, which is really rad. They're very personalized.
2 things my job expects me to be is calm and proper. I am actually cheerful and curious.
That's very good.
I devote my life to protecting the wisdom of my caring adoptive mother, who reminded me to always be myself. My mother is a kangaroo, so I've picked up some traits from her. And I have a decoder for the secret moth-tending cipher, an ancient relic gifted by my mentor, which is in danger of falling apart.
See, now this is where we're going to get into sad territory very quickly, which is good because that's where we're strong. That's where we're comfortable. I think the experiment of this campaign is going to be us continuously walking each other back from cliffs, going like, no, not in this one, not in this one. In this one, it works out well. Ashley, is there anything else you want to share about your character before we move along?
What color's the fur? What did you settle on?
I think I went with black and white.
Aww.
Black and white fur. I love it.
Little panda.
Little skunk ferret.
My ferret wears a well-worn moth-tending uniform and small little reading glasses. He usually has a satchel full of papers with a map of local towers, and he carries a shining lantern and a telescope.
Yeah, that's another thing that's really nice about this game is that it gives you choices to select for your look that are more than cosmetic. I mean, they're going to play some part in the game. So actually, before we move on to my character, Nick, did you describe Brand's look much? Go ahead and hit me with that.
The way he looks?
Yeah, his look.
I hit him with like the looks that I'm able to choose. So
okay.
Like the hidden armor, many scars, nervous tongue flick, and then the torn standard, which is a standard that bears my family's emblem.
Okay. Cool.
But I did not describe how Brand actually looks, which I'm gonna say Brand looks a lot more like a reticulated python. I think he is that very bright, effervescent green, and I think he has like those really bright blue outlines of triangles along his back.
I like that
because I love that image, and I think his eyes are just that like solid yellow, with the iris there as just that regular black iris. But yeah, I think that's what Brand looks like. He's covered in scars. I actually think he has only his left eye.
I love that.
I think Brand only has his left eye, and I do have a notable scar that is different from the rest, but we'll talk about that more as we characterize later down.
Do you think you have a missing eye, like eye patch style, or do you think it's one of those like your eye was cut and it's sort of like grayed over?
I think it is cut. I don't think it's even grayed over. I think I literally just keep it closed.
Keep it shut. I like that. That's
I think it's just cut, shut, and there's like I think it's a rake from where I got this weapon. I think that's part of that battle, and there's a really large cut there. And I don't think it was from who I was fighting. I think it was from something else, which I'll describe later.
Having some insider info on that, I am excited to hear about that.
Yeah. Green guy covered in scars, and I think wherever I have scars along my body, it's like that like pinky flesh almost, like underneath the scales, what they would be. Which is fun. I like to imagine I like the way that my character looks in my mind.
Brienne, what does Cammy look like?
She's a black cat. She wears a very big, cozy looking dress, very big hat. And her brother Saffron is going to be in very simple clothes. He's a teenager, so he's big, tall, and goofy, and always smiling.
So before we started play, we had talked about Saffron being legitimately like quadrupedal, like a normal dog, quote unquote.
I changed my mind.
You think we're gonna do bipedal?
Yeah, he's just the muscle.
You think he's just like he just has like a really big backpack on?
Yes.
With all your stuff, like rolls and packs and stuff. I love that.
Oh yeah, he's like twice my size. I can't carry all that.
Yeah, no, of course not. And he's like, "But could you carry some?" And you're like, "No, what?"
It's like I'll carry this, and I pick up like a box, like a little tiny box.
I almost like that. I wonder if Brand helps out Saffron every now and then, because for Brand, he's slithering across the ground. He's got all this length. I'm sure if you just put some of that in his midsection, he's not going to mind.
Put it far enough back that I do not notice.
Yes, and I wonder if like that's part of the game with he plays with Saffron of like trying to tell when Saffron puts something on him.
If you can sneak it on, I will ferry it for you.
Yeah, I think I literally have that conversation.
But
with
woe
Saffron.
to he who is discovered.
I can imagine Saffron having this big goofy grin when he puts something on your back and he thinks you don't notice, and he's just like got this little mischievous smile and like a little giggle, but it's so obvious and you can obviously hear it, but you just play along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Brand is a very like, he is that grizzled veteran. He's trying to find the beauty in the world that he feels like he's lost. He's trying to learn how to forgive himself. So yeah, I think a lot of his interactions are trying his best to be happy and find moments to enjoy what Haeth has to offer that he didn't know. He needed to get beyond the borders that he trapped himself in.
I like
love that. I said I love it, so you just like it, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's the name of the podcast, right?
Oh, who's older? Is Saffron the younger?
He's the younger one.
By how much?
I'm thinking at least several years. I'm imagining him in he's in that like really lanky puppy phase where they grow really big, but they have so much energy of a puppy.
Right.
So I have to kind of like try to, keep him from getting into too much trouble.
He's in the gangly noodle stage.
Well, part of the cool thing that's fun to imagine, right, is like you're a cat and you only get as so big, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder if very early on in his development throughout this stuff, he'll just get significantly bigger than you.
Oh, he absolutely will.
If he is not already just bigger than you.
I think he's definitely already bigger than her, but I think he will get significantly bigger, yeah.
It's funny to just imagine that relationship of him looking down like, oh, I'm sorry, big sis. And
I imagine her like, not with the claws, but she does the little like nose tap, like no.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Patting him with your pads, your little pods.
Mm-hmm. Little toe beans.
Toe beans.
Toe beans. Toe beans or not toe beans? That is the question.
So we have
Quack.
Noodle.
Are we talking
and then we're just missing one introduction now.
Yes, me. It is I. Hi, I'm Dan. Self-imposed host of this podcast, apparently. And I play Davold, who is the Firelight. His pronouns are he, him. And he's a little finnick fox. He's very cute, very big old ears. He wears a wide-brimmed hat that covers his eyes. And yes, all of you who are picturing this, his ears definitely do stick out of holes in the hat. How could they not? He walks with a reliable wooden staff with a lantern hanging from over top of kind of like a crook. It's like a shepherd sort of thing. And strewn upon his back is a well-loved guitar. I think that was a family heirloom, perhaps, that has the like pick guard is missing and like the body of the guitar is scratched up and there's loose bits of extra string hanging from the tuning pegs. And it is one of those guitars that looks like shit and sounds the best. It's great. And he carries with him also a book of small rituals, which I really like because I like the idea that there's just like little bits of magic in this world. Nothing crazy, but like, you do a ritual to the right forgotten god. Maybe your campfire burns easily tonight, or maybe, you eat what you have, but you go to bed with a full stomach regardless. Something like that. It's very nice. The cool thing about the Firelight is that they have with them a firefly who helps guide them and others along the path, both figuratively and literally. And so my firefly is named Jacob, and I got to choose how we met, and I choose that we grew up together. So he's been with me since I've been a little boy, little fox boy, and they are, Jacob is anyway, caring and honest. And then I guess to end, I will do the I am and I am not kind of thing, which for the Firelight is I try to be and I know I can't be. So I try to be there for everyone, and I try to be enough. And I know I can't be endlessly patient, and I can't be everywhere at once, which I feel like is a very nice dichotomy for for a young man who has, as Nick tastefully described, a little bit of a savior complex. So yeah, those are our characters. Do we want to talk a little bit about the sort of bonds we have with each other?
Yeah, I'm totally down.
Sure.
I think, I think as briefly as we can, maybe.
Yeah.
We can just go quickly through the questions that we had asked each other and what those answers were. Before we get into that, actually, I should explain. One of the really cool things about Wanderhome character creation is that you're asked to ask a question to the person to your left and the person to your right that kind of characterizes your character, their character, and their relationship. But because we like the idea are a little extra, we went ahead and asked everybody a question. There's just 4 of us, so we asked one extra question. We pray for Jade Dragon's forgiveness. But we just can't help ourselves. And so, Nick, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Brand is a veteran, so he asked questions from the veteran playbook. And I will start off with the question I kicked off, which was towards Dewald. Sorry, I'm getting into the jokey way. I'm going to make fun of his language.
Yes.
Dewald, I asked, when did Dewald learn that I was a good person? And we considered it that maybe one day when we were camping, Dewald woke up and for the first time, either the first time or in a rare occasion, Jacob was not next to him in bed. And when he came out of his tent, I was sat there at the fire poking the wood so that it would create little firelights for Jacob to look at. And I was essentially coiled up in my own tail and cuddling up next to Jacob because I had just woken up from a pretty bad dream. And we've described Jacob as someone who truly understands character, probably better than most, very much to that sort of degree that we ideally hold dogs to.
Yeah, exactly.
And so because of our grinding history with one another and the sides we represented during the war, we may have had a tumultuous relationship at the start, but after seeing Jacob trust me to that degree, how could Dewald not trust Brand as well?
And I think, we had talked about, we had a moment there where something that's interesting or worth knowing, I guess, maybe about Dewald, that'll definitely come up in play because it'll be described constantly, is that Dewald is always smoking. He always has a cigarette hanging from his lips. Snout? Mouth? I don't know, man. I'm not a fox. He is. And there's a little backstory behind this pack of smokes that he keeps pulling from, but we can talk about that in play as it comes up. And I think that he and Brand, who smokes from a pipe, shared a smoke together that night and just sort of talked about the war and the mistakes that they had both made and the folly of conflict and that sort of thing. The idea that, anybody is truly on an opposite side, I think, is something they probably discussed. And so, since then, we've been good. And I think another thing that's like so worth talking about with this system is in another system, in a D&D or a Dungeon World or, any sort of other roleplay system, I think Nick and I would have chosen to roleplay that tumultuous relationship because conflict is good, right? Conflict is interesting. But I think this game asks you to look at the bright side of things and imagine that part is done and that, we're friends here. So I love that. Go on and continue, Nick.
The next question I had was for Noodle and that player, and I started with, what craft have you been teaching me? And this is a little bit to do with Noodle's backstory that I think she mentioned, which Noodle's decoder is going into ruins. And I think at some point Brand was starting to feel pretty bad because it's stressful for a moth. What do they call it? A
moth tender?
A moth tender to be losing the decoder that helps them communicate with the moths. And I think I went up to her and like, hey, teach me about the decoder. Just talk about the pages and I'll do my best to help you memorize them. So that way, when we can get it on new medium, maybe you don't have to be the only one forced to remember everything. And I can help you with that. And then when it started with that, but every time we do it, Noodle's always cooking, and I think at some point it also turned into cooking lessons for Brand. So Brand is trying to learn how to make pasta, but Brand struggles because he doesn't have hands, and all of Noodle's stuff stuff has like two handles, and we've had to learn how to get past that. So I'm learning how to decode moth language that I don't understand at all, and I'm also learning how to cook, which I'm really bad at because I tend to just eat things live.
He's just trying his best.
But yeah, that's my relationship with Noodle. And then the final question I asked towards Chamomile, which was, what do I still need to learn from you? And we settled on that really quickly and really somberly, which is Chamomile is teaching me how to forgive myself because of what side I stood on the war, because of the events of some things that happened in my past, and just because of the nature of being someone who comes from war. It's a hard lesson to learn to let that go and forgive yourself, and Chamomile is helping me learn that. It's still something I struggle with. And that is my relationships with everyone.
I love that. It's very warm and good and great.
Goodness.
We can follow the same order if you'd like. Brienne, you want to talk about your entanglements with the rest of the players?
So the question I had for Ash was, how do I decompress? And she had the cute idea that I need the wool that I sell, and while I'm kneading, I'm making patterns in it. So I'm making blankets and stuff with really intricate patterns, but I'm kneading it to also decompress and de-stress. And another one was, how did we start traveling together all those years ago? And I asked this question to Brand's player. She offered Brand protection from the cold one night when she discovered him outside, and invited into her family's inn for the night, and showed him some simple comforts of home. You know, a nice cup of tea, the fire, soft blankets.
We didn't talk about this, but I wonder if that was shortly after you had deserted.
That was exactly what we talked about.
Okay,
Well,
cool.
we talked about this when you weren't in the room before, but yeah. Essentially, Noodle helped me to have the documents to actually break away from my family. And then after that breakaway, I didn't have anywhere to go. And the only place I remembered was helping Noodle deliver this letter to this inn. And so I stayed the night in front of the inn. And thankfully, Chamomile recognized me from delivering that letter so many years ago and allowed me to come in. And after that, I kept, in quotation marks, forgetting that I was still holding onto their cup and bringing it back the next day to like, I took your cup, I'm sorry. And they would invite me in for tea again for the night. And yeah, it was that relationship of I didn't know, and I was ultimately incredibly comfortable here. And I think we talked about that lesson of like an innkeeper teaching me, and I wonder if instead of that being you, I wonder if that was actually your parents who taught me that helping people is ultimately going to matter significantly more than serving in an army.
Yeah, I could imagine you having a conversation with Cammie's mom one night saying like, your daughter's been so good to me and so kind to me. And her mom is like, that's nothing. That's just what we do. It's what it means to be alive and to be a person and be a community member is to take care of people. And so like the fact that that's out of the norm for you is sad. And I'm sorry about that.
Hey, parents are parents in my situation, and I come from a long line of violence.
So a very different background. Yeah. And then also just briefly, because I would be one of these people, for those who don't know what kneading is for a cat, Brienne, would you like to describe that?
Kneading is the, if you notice sometimes a cat, when they find something soft, they
muffins.
Yes, it looks like they're kneading the dough, kneading muffin dough. And they push their paws into it and then retract their claws, and just goes back and forth. They often do that on with their mother as like as a comfort or like a sign that they trust you. And so yeah, I think that's really cute that she does that. And back to the how did we start traveling together? So I think that she was going to go, on the road, sell her stuff. And I think we had talked about that you had insisted on coming with me for protection. And she kind of realized this was more for, what was it? What do we say? More for
Brand's sake than for Cammie's.
Here's an interesting question that I didn't consider for our relationship, but I am very interested in this. How old are you, I wonder? Because I wonder if, we talked about this, the ending of the war being 10 years ago, but I wonder if the event with your family and stuff, I wonder if I've known you since you were younger. Maybe
like a
not like a
kitten.
child, but like definitely during the teens. And then
Mhm.
like there is almost an obligation there. And maybe even I had a conversation with your parents about like, look, well, I'll keep her safe,
Mhm.
and they would know that I have the ability to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I think they'd absolutely put trust in you that you could keep me safe
I've
if I
just been
needed
bumming at their end for years. I love this.
I mean, I think you've probably just been living there
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
some amount of
Right?
time, right? And
Yeah.
I picture. I mean, I don't know, Brianne. You can correct me here, but I picture Cammy as like 18 or 19, like a maybe early 20s. Whereas I
in
picture
human years or cat years, because that is going to make a big difference.
Well,
Human
we
years.
keep things in
That
human
makes-
years for the convenience of our.
That makes
Yeah.
a lot more sense.
Also, this is Fantasyland. You could live to be 1,000.
That
is
who,
true.
who cares? No one's dying. Okay, no one's dying yet. See, we're already walking back from cliffs, Brianne.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. What's the last one?
The last one is, what do you give me that I can't get anywhere else? And I had asked DeWald this.
Yes.
And your answer was guidance. I wrote, I get direction from him and I keep him grounded and remembering to enjoy the little things.
Yeah, I think we give each other something, and that something is that sort of. I think I described it as we keep each other on the path,
Yes.
figuratively and literally. The firelight by nature is a navigator, and a kind of a pathfinder. But I think it's also very much meant to be more figurative and metaphorical as well. And I think in a world where there's definitely a lot of lingering stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff is a good way to put
Tension?
it.
Yeah, that we're all going
Tension
through.
is one of the stuffs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff with a capital S.
Yeah.
There's a need for that for someone to reorient you, and I think that our little group is very good about that. And I love that. So okay, those were your 3 relationships. We got those
Yes.
easy. Fucking podcasting is so easy. Just talking to a microphone, anybody could do it. We're coming for you, Joe Rogan.
So Noodle asked, Brand, why did I risk my job and career to help you? And I think you explained it better if you want to.
Yeah, I can go over it if you'd like me to. We had decided to characterize a moment in our past where it's likely one of the first interactions of the group, because this is way back when I was actually serving in the military, but starting to have doubts about my position. Brand came upon some guards that were hassling a moth tender, which is going to be viewed as in the country as a sort of a neutral force that it just delivers messages. And I think they were likely had the intentions of probably no good. And I think my character Brand as Kingsguard stepped forward, established his rank as back down, and read the letter and essentially looked towards the guard and just said, it's for a sickly woman. What you guys are doing is wrong. Be gone before I whatever.
Be gone before I unsheath my blade.
Yeah.
At a time when his blade was unsheathed frustratingly often.
Yes. Don't make me bloody my blade again.
It's very good.
It's hard to clean without hands.
No, I think for a while, yeah, Brand said shit like that. That was just really intimidating, don't grant me the disservice and the inconvenience of having to clean my blade a 3rd time today.
That's good.
And
How do you draw your blade, dude?
how do I draw my blade?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're getting way off track here,
Here's
but
an
I gotta
interesting
know.
thing, right? I think early on, again, I like to characterize this because I'm a snake. I think my blade was weapons in my mouth as a Kingsguard. What I wield now is entirely different. And how I unsheath that is by wielding it within my tail. And we'll talk about how I use it once it's defined more. But
Once your character is retired from the game.
and I haven't mentioned this, but I guess now it's a good time to mention it for the podcast. I am missing a tooth, one of my fangs. And that is entirely because of removing part of removing the weapons that were in my mouth I did it in such a violent way that one of my teeth went with it. I think I literally ripped them out in disgust of
You quite literally tore that part out of you.
yeah. I
Yeah.
did not want that. Whatever my weapon of choice was, I truly imagine it as arming my teeth. Armed to the teeth is very on the nose here.
Speaking of
I'll
on the
say that.
nose, you on the hog nose
Yes.
is you were tired of having violence in you
Yeah.
and you wanted it out, and
It
that's
is part of why my character, one of the things he refuses to be is furious now.
Yeah.
He regards that as just like an intent for violence, and he doesn't want that in his life.
yeah, the relationship of you are sometimes cold, but you are never furious.
Mhm.
Cold meaning cold in demeanor, not in uber.
Yeah.
Although we all get a little cold from time
Well,
to
he's
time, I imagine.
cold-blooded too.
But
Check it and see.
But ultimately, yes, I stood in the way. I stopped the guards from hassling her. I even escorted her towards the building, which I think we talked about maybe even being a letter that was meant for Chamomile's family inn. And I got her to that building, and I turned away and just was happy that I managed to do maybe one good deed in a sea of many bad. So,
And I think something that is a lesson that Brand will slowly learn, hopefully, and that maybe everybody learns is that, bad deeds do not wash away good ones.
Yep.
They stand alone. And so that good deed, means as much as it means, which is great. So. Ashley, keep going. What other relationships do you have?
I also asked Cammy,
Yes.
when did I realize that I could trust you? And that was, I saw a wilting orchid. A wilting orchid in the window of her inn. And the orchid symbolizes the revolution, right?
Yes, it is a symbol of the rebellion.
I wonder if the standard for the rebellion was an orchid.
no, I was literally going to say, I think it may even be called, you can call it the Black Orchid Rebellion.
Ooh. Are orchids black?
No, but I think that in this scenario they are, and I
think
wonder
they
if
could
the whole idea of like a wilting orchid is because it's dying, and that's the representation. Can they be black? I have no idea.
I think they can.
I mean, it's Fantasyland. They can be whatever fucking color they want.
That's true, right?
It's fucking purple with tinges of turquoise for all I care.
Black orchid just sounds cool.
Here's
That's why
here's
I
an
put it.
important thing for all you nascent world builders out there. Anything can be anything, okay? And you can set boundaries as you need. Set boundaries, but not impositions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Especially for things that don't matter. Yeah. Just let me proselytize for a second. Okay, awesome.
And then last question.
Last and most interestingly, because it involves me.
Oh yes, certainly.
I asked Devold, what is it about my job that so appeals to you? And Dan,
You're
if you
so
wanna
fucking
answer that,
cool.
you can.
Yeah, it's that it's so fucking cool and poggers. We absolutely stand the boys and girls in blue, the guys, gals, and non-binary pals, the only blue lives that matter, etc., etc. Support your local post office. Is your package a little late? Shut the fuck up. Anyway, that aside, that completely non-politically charged statement aside. I think Devold and Noodle share a lot in common. They're essentially both guides and are delivering parcels, whereas Devold is delivering people to wherever it is that they need to get, and Noodle is delivering letters and mail and packages. There's a similarity in that calling, and also we both work with animals that are frustratingly independent, whimsical individuals.
Something I want to take the time to characterize here, which is for those listeners who don't know a lot about Wanderhome as a system. I'm sure you've picked up now that all of the things that exist that are sentient tend to be animals, whether they're anthropomorphic or not. They are based on animals, and the interesting part about that is we're talking about insects. Insects make up what to us as people out here are like the backbone of the workforce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bumblebees are like the animal, the horse.
Yeah.
In this world, and you have like things that do the land for farmers is like a rhinoceros beetle.
Stag beetles.
Yeah,
are,
stag beetles.
Are for the peddlers are Brienne characterized it as her cool adopted brother who's a dog, but the art for the Peddler, which is really cool, is a stag beetle with a bunch of wares on its back. And I
Like a
Nick,
beast of burden type animal.
exactly, beast of burden. And Nick, you had said you think you mostly eat live things.
Yeah.
The ethics of which starts to get a little troubling when we're all animals and animals are sentient, but we can broach that as little as necessary, I think.
Well, I think just bugs are animals. So if you eat bugs, it's
No,
like
I
you're
think in
eating-
this world, like everything's omnivorous, right? We can eat whatever we want. I think maybe in my family it was a point to eat live things, and I think now I'm a vegetarian. I think I make it a point to not eat meat anymore.
I like that. I almost suggested it that like maybe
Yeah.
you're vegetarian now.
I think I certainly am. I think as a show against like maybe as a being a snake in this world, being a vegetarian is one of those things like that's not looked great upon. But I very much like that I don't want to eat meat and I will just eat salads. I'm good with that.
Maybe that's why you enjoy me making pasta for you all the time.
Right, I've never had to cook, and I think that's really cool. I have never had to cook. I could just eat bugs or insects or other things maybe that were alive.
Nice and such.
Yeah, and now I'm having to learn how to cook because it turns out just eating the grass on the ground is not very flavorful. It'll get me by though.
The sunflower is crunchy, but it lacks flavor.
Yeah. And I think every time you teach me to make something noodle, I'm like, and there's no meat in that, right? Like I don't understand it. Like
And Noodle's like, no, of course not. Like, what do you mean?
it's like, yeah, but you called it like a broccoli steak, and I didn't. I just want to make sure like it wasn't.
It's impossible meat,
That's just
okay?
the way it's cut.
Yeah.
You're
It's
not
okay.
serving me leaves, but there's no meat in it. How?
Right.
But there's no vegetables in this dish. How could it possibly be vegetarian?
Right. Very fun.
Okay, radical. So we got you through relationships, did we, Ash?
Yes.
Okay, so now it is me. My favorite part of the podcast.
1 second. I want to intercede.
Fine, dude.
I did not technically answer your question because I just described what led to us. I got you out of trouble, and I think the thing that you risked your job for was the actual question, which we forgot to mention.
Yes.
When I did eventually break away from my family, I think the moth tenders had a means to sort of facilitate my removal from my own family, and that was you risking your job for me to repay that, and that was why. That's it. I just wanted to make sure that was defined.
We love forging documents and such.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Tax fraud.
What'd you say?
Tax fraud.
I mean, listen.
Noodle hasn't paid taxes in years.
Hey, this is a utopia. The IRS does not exist. There are no taxes, okay? You help people who need help. It's just
My,
obvious.
my family really tried to make taxes a thing.
I'm sure they did.
And that's why I can get away with tax fraud.
Okay. So, my guy. What the hell? What? Why did I forget how to talk when it became my turn? Yes, my relationships. So the first one that I defined was Nick Brand. The question that was asked was, why does my Firefly like you so much? Why does Jacob like you? And we very quickly landed on he's a great judge of character, like we talked about. And I wrote it in a very flowery way, which is to say that Brand's being reflects kindness. Also, he plays with Jacob by batting him around gently with his tail, and Jacob fucking loves that. Because I don't think Devald is very playful. He's nice and he's kind, but I think he's a sort of self-serious person, or maybe tends to be. I don't know. I don't want to characterize him too hard, but I like the idea that Brand gives Jacob something that Devald doesn't in that sort of playfulness.
What I like about that, though, is like, I like that Brand probably also isn't that playful, but he can't help it with something like Jacob.
Exactly.
Like, that's very, very much like childlike in that sense.
Something else that is worth describing just because it's cute and worth knowing, I feel, is that Jacob, he's a Firefly, which are traditionally not very large. And he sleeps during the day. This is described in the playbook. He sleeps during the day and he lights up at night, and is awake during the night, of course. And I really loved the idea that he is very small and kind of just sleeps on my shoulder, or maybe on the brim of my hat or on one of my big ears during the day. And that at nighttime he grows to be, 5 times as large. And he, can light up the whole path that we're on. And often, because Devold is a very small individual, sometimes he rides upon Jacob's back like a little firefly hovercraft. And Jacob gives him shit for it. I still haven't decided if Jacob talks or not. So many of these things are sentient.
I really like the idea, and I know it's kind of like self-importy, but I love that only as a light person you can.
As a firelight, I can understand him.
You can understand them.
Yeah, it's a Han Solo Wookiee situation where you're like, is Wookiee a language? Does
Right.
Han Solo just understand Chewbacca?
And like, there's a whole thing where we talked about the decoder for moth tenders, and I think that's very applicable to the same thing for yourselves.
Yeah, cool. So then I asked Brienne, I asked Cammy the question,
Yes.
when did you or how did you bring me back into the light? Which is a very loaded question. But I think Brienne handled it quite well. I'd love for you to describe that to you if you remember. If not, I can read it off my sheet.
Let's see. I don't remember it specifically. I remember the kind of essence of it was kind of reminding you to enjoy the little things. But I don't remember it specifically.
Yeah, I think basically you kind of sat me down and you were like, dude, you're guiding everybody, but you're lost. Like, have a cup of tea and like read a book with me and just chill a bit.
That's right. The importance of self-care.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You sat me down. You said, Queen, put on the face mask, get your cucumber eyes. Is it cucumbers?
Yes.
All right. I almost said kiwi. That's not right.
No, that was not right.
Welcome to my massage parlor. I'm going to put kiwis on your eyes. Why?
See, Cammy would know.
Isn't that what we do? Yeah. And I think that's awesome.
Chamomile's responsible for a lot of character development in this group.
I agree. And I love that she's at the risk of sounding like she's mature for her age. She is wise beyond her years, I think.
Well, that's really interesting because the playbook that describes being the fool is that the things you say carry with it a tinge of naivety, but grand depth that can only be achieved through those lenses.
Kind of like a hidden wisdom.
Yeah, and that's the idea that I think your character portrays, right? That wisdom of things that adults forget.
Yeah, I think I was going to say something along the lines of, I think your wisdom is that you carry a perspective, specifically for Brand and for Devold, that we just haven't had enough of in our lives. Like, you come from a very different background of hospitality and warmth and care. Whereas, I think Devold has been very self-sacrificial, and Brand has been very, steeped in servitude.
Well, also when you're knee deep in war all the time, you kind of like lose track of the little things. It's like you need to just get done what needs to be done, and because people's lives are at stake, everything is so
grand.
Yeah. So it's like, she comes from a place where, she sees that stress, that just the sees it wear on people, and tries to bring him back down.
Yeah,
I love
which
that.
makes a lot of sense from just like, because we haven't fully characterized, but from how the little we've defined your parents, it's like they're full of that infinite kindness that must step back to that wisdom of just like knowing to do the right thing, and that has to wash off on you in a very marvelous way for a child to watch their parents do things like that.
Absolutely. And I think she absolutely looks up to them because of it.
I think subtly, one of the things that you peddle is you're kind of a therapist a little bit.
A little bit.
Unintentionally, I think. I think it's just an effect that you have on people with, I think maybe that's part of your whole craft is like, I'm selling these designs and these books and collections of tea to remind people to enjoy life and enjoy the smaller things.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot. You might even say I like the idea. And then finally, Noodle, I asked the deepest question, I think, which was, where did you ask me to guide you, or where do you wish I could guide you, and why can't I? And what we had decided on was that Noodle wanted to go home and visit their hometown little village, and it was only through guiding them along the path to that village that Devold started to see the sort of telltale signs of destruction and the sort of remnants of abandonment when people are evacuated from a village. And I think in another story, her family would have been killed. But I think in this story, there is a hope that they were evacuated and they are still alive somewhere. And I think that that's a story that we're more interested in telling. So it's still quite sad, but there is a tinge of optimism there that they could be reunited someday.
I mean, what's more powerful in this world than hope?
Exactly.
I have a very, I wonder almost that I'm using here. You guys know where this place is, right? And where she wishes for you to take her but can't. I wonder if you guys haven't even stepped into the village for fear of what you'll find. And maybe some of that journey still has to happen at some point of like stepping into the village and seeing if what's there.
That's not bad. Yeah, I could definitely
I like
see Devald having a frank conversation with Noodle wherein they grow a lot closer, where he basically tells him, I can take you to where your village is, but it's not there. Like, I know what the signs are. I've seen this too many times. We can go if you want, but if you're not ready, we don't have to. We can go somewhere else. And that's one of the really cool things also about this system is that right at the front, they give you tools for your exploration. And they're a collection of phrases that, are sort of all within that lines and veils and X's sort of thing that, deals with role play safety and community respect and stuff like that. And we don't really have too much trouble with that in our personal group because we're all kind of
Respect each other?
well, sure. Not only that, but I think that we never
good
really
people?
Huh?
We're good people.
Sure. All that great stuff that makes us awesome people. But more so that it never comes up really because we sort of operate in the same sphere mentally and emotionally. And so lines are never really even broached, let alone crossed with us. Not to brag. We're just like, we just get each other.
Yeah, we're just cool like that.
Yeah, we're just like meant to be.
I mean, we've been friends for how long? So
Yeah, exactly. But some of the tools are these phrases. And one of the phrases is, let's do this instead. Or do we want to? And I really like the idea of Devald looking at Noodle and saying, like, do we really want to do this? Like, we can do something instead. And they did, maybe. And ultimately, I'll leave that decision up to Ash, because that is her character that would have made that decision. So if it's more interesting to you, Ash, that we have not actually seen your village proper, then we'll do that. But if you want to have made that choice to step forward and you have seen the ruin of your village, then that is something also that we can do. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, I'm okay with have already been seen. Yes.
Having already seen it?
Yes.
Okay, so we did make that step forward, and see, that's an important thing to know. And I think maybe there were things there that gave some vague clue as to where her family might be, something that gives hope. Like, the place is abandoned and the house is burnt out, but the closets are empty. There are no clothes there. There's no silverware there's no, I don't know, tableware in the cupboards.
I also wonder because the way the moth tender stuff works, right? There's towers places for the moths. I wonder if she has like the collection of like all of the letters from that tower to try and find something, and maybe that's something she does.
I wonder how often she checks those towers. Ash and Noodle melding into one. I wonder how often he checks those towers for any sort of word. Because
he's still got a job to do.
Okay. I think we've done it. I think we have described our characters. We've described our relationships to each other. Something that might be worth kind of ending on is what I really love about the way that the playbooks end, which is describing things that we can always do. And so we'll go around the table and read those. So Nick, I would love for you to start.
Yeah, let me go ahead and kick us off with the things that the veteran can always do. And these are in like a mechanical sense, right? These are like the skills you have proficiency in 5e in, and in Dungeon World, these are your moves. These are just something that like irrefutably in your own narrative, because again, it's like a round robin style of narrating, are things you can say you always have ready and loaded that you can do.
It is your innate nature, so to speak.
Right. And for me, that is repeat a calming phrase, which I'm sitting on what it is. I'm very interested to figure out what I'm going to do for that. spend time practicing a craft you're not very good at, which I think I am often teaching myself how to cook when Noodle is busy.
Yes.
Or maybe too deep in a letter and having a bit of a rough time. I can always drum against the pommel of my blade, which I think is actually, and I really like this idea that it's like has some level of decoration. And I wonder if drumming is literally just shaking my back and it makes like a small jingle, or maybe even the way the air moves through it creates like a nice little like melody.
Ooh,
I really like that.
That's very strong. Yeah,
and I think I like
that.
the wind making a melody out of it.
Yeah, the breeze blows through it, and it's like wind chimes.
Yeah.
Oof.
One of the things I can always do is leap to my feet, which as a snake is very funny. But we have kind of characterized it as me being like the alert one of the group.
You can uncoil, might be another way of putting that.
You know, I think I can essentially put my head where it needs to be within that 30 feet. You know, I can always say, I don't do that anymore. I can always ask, what are you hiding? And last, and certainly most impactful, I can unsheath my blade and immediately kill the person in front of me. And then I remove my character from the game. I cannot play them anymore. Those are the things I can always do.
I love that. That last one is, I think, what makes the playbook, right? It's what it is the conceit of the entire playbook, which is that you are a warrior who must not kill.
I am playing with the idea of, and I kind of want to do this because it's one of the few things I can do. Kind of want to give him a southern accent. Is that weird?
Can you do a southern accent, Nick?
Not a great one, but I'm okay with that.
So something you can always do. Funnily enough, I actually didn't realize this was part of it. It was on a different page, and I thought I was done.
I know the way that the playbooks are laid out, it definitely looks like you're done creating a character after 2 pages, but there's one more page, and that confused me as well. Go ahead.
So I'm looking at a couple. One of them is know someone who can help. So she can always know someone who can help. She can intensely examine something. Sit down and do the math. Trade for or trade away one of your many wares. Ask, what can I do for you? Say, I have a deal for you, and give them a token if they hear you out and consider it.
Oh, I like that.
I'm kind of digging the know someone who can help because, you know, working at her parents' inn, she would have met a lot of people.
You don't have to choose one. You have all of them.
Oh, you just have them.
Yeah, those are the things you can always do.
Awesome.
Yeah. This is very much a generous game of maximalism, because this is I didn't mention this, but maybe people have picked up on it, is that this is a diceless system. You know, we're not rolling for anything. We'll fail where it makes sense and we'll succeed where it makes sense. But yeah, no, absolutely. You can always do those things, which is...
There's also something else down here. It says, during each seasonal holiday, choose one you haven't chosen before, and it gives me a lot of options.
That's level up system.
So that is the level up system in this game. So
I see. Okay.
It's very neat. Each session that we play, there is assumed to be a length of time that has passed. You know, we're always traveling on the road. And that's why at the beginning of the session, we always ask the same questions. Where have we just come from? Where have we arrived? Where do we hope to go? And essentially after 3 or 4 sessions, I forget exactly what the length of time is, and we can kind of define it ourselves. A season ends, and at the end of each season, there's a holiday, and so we'll celebrate that holiday and characterize that together. I sent a screenshot to the group chat, actually, of all the holidays. It's very cute, and it also describes shortly what the season is like. And at the end of that season, you get to pick one of those things, and it's like a level up. And then I think for all playbooks, I could be wrong, but I think for all playbooks, once you have chosen all the level up options, you retire your character.
Yep.
What?
Yeah. It is a game that almost forces a retiree because we've told the story, which gives us a hard cap on like sessions for this game, which is I find really interesting.
Well, yeah, it's neat, right? Because it ultimately, in theory, it does give you a hard cap, but something that we can do that is very flexible, and the game's very open about this, is like we can choose to have had no time pass between each session that we do. You know, if we end a session and we feel like, man, I really want to stay here and like see this thing out or whatever, when we start our next session, we can 100% have been there still.
Is that our loophole?
What's that?
Is that our loophole?
Yeah, more or less. It's to stop Brienne from having a crisis about her character eventually eating a god or something.
Who would do a thing like that
Not this one.
in this campaign?
Yeah. So yeah, I really like that. I do think that ending a character in a playbook is a very nice thing because it sort of lends itself to the easy transience that this game sort of romanticizes, which I love. Well, you're always passing through, you're always kind of in and out of different stories and different lives, and your time is limited. So I'm realizing more and more that this is probably going to be a session 0 for us. Because we still have a lot of work to do, and it's good work because it's the work of setting up the place that we're entering, which I think is rad. So what the game asks you to do is select 3 natures for the place. Now, a nature describes the type of place that we are, and it can be anything from a comfortable nature, a verdant nature, or a liminal nature. So something like liminal is like spaces between. So we could be like on a bridge, on an island, in a tavern, that kind of thing. Comfortable, farm, garden, market, monastery, workshop. Verdant, field, glen, hollow, hillock, lagoon, swamp, etc. We need to decide on 3 natures for the place that we are.
Well, where are we starting? I mean, if my parents' inn is kind of like a linchpin in this, do we just want to start there?
Well, the idea is that we've traveled away from that.
That's correct.
We're already gone.
Where are we arriving is what we're designing.
We are sort of starting. Do you know what in media res means?
Nope.
So in media res, for Brienne and for the viewers who may not know, listeners, is the idea of starting a story in the middle of an action. Like if you've ever started a book that starts in the middle of an action scene or starts in the middle of a sentence, right? In media res is one of my favorite ways to start stories that I write personally. It just kind of gets you right into there. It cuts the bullshit. So like for us, it's more interesting that we start having already traveled from somewhere. We've been traveling together for a while, and this is just, it's like the camera pans in on us entering this village or wherever we're entering, and it's like now we're getting to, view this story. And we have a past and we have a future now. And so what kind of place do we want to enter? I know Nick and I had talked about briefly entering sort of a bigger place for a celebration. It's either the
a festival?
Yeah, like it is either the 5th or 10th anniversary of this war ending. I don't know what we want to decide on ultimately. I
like 5th.
Okay, then that's fine with me. We will go with 5th. So it's been 5 years since the war has ended, and I think that there's a celebration happening in this village. And I think, let me see here. Okay, so here is the full list of natures. Comfortable natures, verdant natures, liminal natures, sprawling natures, lonely natures, and desolate natures, which is very interesting. I feel like sprawling might be a good place to start because one of them is carnival. I wonder if it's a carnival.
I like carnival.
Okay.
It almost makes me think it's like what is that city here in the U.S. that's literally just like has a party street dedicated? That's
New Orleans?
New Orleans, yeah. Is this place just New Orleans?
Oh my God. I think it's like
less beads.
Because to describe a place as a carnival, then the fact that it's a carnival of an occasion, but the place itself is described as a carnival.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What is that street? There's like one street in New Orleans that's known for it.
Yeah, it's
Party Street.
Is it called Bourbon Street?
Oh yeah, Bourbon Street.
I think you're right. Yeah,
it's something like that. It's something about rampant alcoholism. Cool.
The name of the city's Bourbon now.
I like that. Welcome to the town of Bourbon, where everyone is just fucking smashed all the time.
Smashed all the time.
Hey, you can't be smashed if you're working heavy machinery making the bourbon.
Yeah. Hey, listen, the Ferris wheel operator, he does not inspire confidence. Okay, so that's one nature. I think one that may be easy, and for those, I think Brienne and Nick, I know you both have the PDF. On page 137 is the natures, if you guys want to look and see if any stick out to you. It might be cool to have a verdant nature and have it be like a glen or in a big open field.
What is a glen?
That's a great question. I don't even know. Let's find out.
I really, really like the idea of this being like in a lagoon or swamp, because they're so often characterized as like sad and like dark places. But I really love the like visual image of like this very cool party city and light reflecting off of the nearby water.
Man, like lanterns reflecting off the water. That's very good.
Like that's immediately what came to my mind. And like also, of course, my snake guy loves going through a swamp because he doesn't have to carry some of his weight by going through the water.
All right, I think a swamp is perfect. It says this, and what's nice is that each page has each nature has a page dedicated to it with more information about that. So a swamp is a place where the air is as thick as the mud. This place can always describe the heaviness of the world, show tension caused by stagnation, or bog someone down and give them a token. But I really do love the juxtaposition there of like, welcome to Bourbon. It's humid as shit here, but man, you're gonna have a great time. Like it is party city, and of course the festival would be here, and that's great. Okay, a third and final nature. I'll take a suggestion from somebody on this one. Liminal might be something worth looking at.
Mirage sounded interesting.
Ooh, Mirage is very interesting. Let me take a look at that page as I hit some very heavy plosives there.
Or Labyrinth, but I don't know if that necessarily matches up.
I was also thinking Port, but I like the interestingness of Mirage quite a bit.
Man, a Mirage is a place that doesn't really exist. This place can always describe something too good to be true.
Kind of like a Feywild situation.
Show someone
Getting real dark.
Show someone lost in their folly, or decide something in front of someone is real, and then ask, "Do you believe what you see?" Give them a token if they're wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely because if we're going with Mirage, it's immediately like, yeah, it's a party city, but you know, it's still got the ramifications of the war being 5 years ago.
Well, like it's a party city, but like, what does that mean ultimately? You know, for the passers through, like that's great. For the people that live here, you know, that's a very interesting take on Mirage, and a very interesting take on the phrase "this place is not real." Like, I certainly think this place exists and is a real place, but much like New Orleans and like Vegas, it's a sheen, you know?
It's a front.
Exactly. And there's a lot of room, there's a lot of potential for darkness under that we will have to be minimal with and back off on.
Well, if we want to back off on like that for Mirage, we can always go with Mirror.
What does Mirror say?
Mirror is more like it'll show you things you don't want to see, but it reflects the nature of what you're trying to see.
I like that.
So the way it's described is describe what looks back, reflect back something someone didn't want to see, ask what is it about your reflection that unnerves you, and give them a token.
I think that's a very good middle ground for what we're trying to do.
In a physical way, that actually makes sense because it's a swamp, so much water. We're literally seeing our reflection almost all the time.
I was gonna say mirror works because we're literally describing the acts of a festival reflecting in the water like that, and maybe seeing yourself in the water reflected through these explosions as your background is unsettling because the water's never resting because the explosions cost. I imagine fireworks are going off like every hour.
Sure.
Oh, dude, the folklore for this place is so good, too. The march of countless footsteps, the ghost whose name cannot be spoken, the very edge of the world, something else of your own invention.
Ooh. Dang. The very edge of the world.
The very edge of the world is so...
Brienne, you have very nice handwriting. Will you take a page from Ashley? And we're going to write down some stuff about this place. We will end there because I want this to be a collaborative thing through and through. But we will pick it up and finish recording this episode then. So until then, I love you all. And interrupt. Hi, this is Editing Dan. We had initially planned to meet back up and finish sort of the world setup for our campaign, but we sort of realized that we had ended on a good spot, and we should really just get into the dang old game, and so we do that. Episode 1 should be live now. We plan on posting them at the same time, so go ahead and just hop right there, and we establish the place of Bourbon and who's there, and I think we tell a pretty good story. it's we're all feeling really good about this system, and we hope that you'll join us and enjoy it. And in the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks for checking us out. Leave us a review if you like what you hear. It really helps, or so that's what every podcast I've ever heard says. And yeah, tell a friend, man. We're going to hope to keep these going as often as we can. So thanks for listening again to We Like the Idea. I'm Dan. My co-hosts were Nick, Brianne, and Ash. And we will see you next time when we enter the swamp town of Bourbon. Take care. Love you a bunch. Bye.